Hi, and welcome to the Resilience Podcast. It's Brad here with our founder, Dr. Sven Hansen. Welcome, Sven.
Right.
It's been a while since we dipped our toes into the world of podcasting, and it's great to have you
Indeed.
back again.
Always a good thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, for those who haven't checked out our initial podcast series, Practical Resilience, go back and have a look. Those are still some of the most popular episodes we've ever published. So people are searching for ways to make incremental positive changes in their life. And I think your latest book, Rhythm, provides a beautiful framework for that. So happy to talk about the book and some of the key points and insights people can expect when they download it or read it. So starting from the beginning, why is rhythm important?
Yeah. And, it's one of those things, Brad, we talked about, how people want to go a little deeper into subjects, and yet we've got to try and say things very concisely. So I'll do my very, very best. So I think, at right at the beginning, rhythm is part of the cosmos we live in. Planets circulate in different orbits, and it creates seasons and cycles, and the moon has its rhythm, and the tides have their rhythm, and we have wet seasons and warm seasons, we have heat, we have cold, we have day, we have night. That is the cosmic reality. We live in a rhythmic reality. And if we look at evolution, right from the very, very early stages, they all needed to evolve to work with those rhythms. So while some might hunt during the day, others will hunt at night. And that gave us the rest and active cycle. And some would flourish in summer and others in winter. And some would have to learn to hibernate. Others would evolve extremely complex things to deal with high heat or high or cold. So I think what we have forgotten in our modern world of instant convenience and wonderful things, and no criticism of those wonderful things, but what they can do is break our rhythms. And I guess as I tried to get my head around what was I trying to do with this book, Rhythm, it was to help us understand that some of these rhythms are very important if we want to have a good life. If we, for example, allow our sleep cycles, sleep rhythms, whether it's circadian or ultradian or the sleep need, there are lots of cycles in sleep. We've allowed the 24/7 life, the digital world, light and heating to absolutely flatten those sleep rhythms out. So a majority of people now live with a disrupted sleep rhythm. The consequence hits our minds, it hits our morality, it affects our ability to relate to each other, to express emotion, to feel emotion, to manage mood, and it really compromises our health. So I guess, where I think we're at right now is for humans to be able to move from unconscious rhythm management to conscious rhythm management. In the past, nature dictated your rhythms. If you didn't get to a safe place at night, you were food. End of story. Goodbye.
Yep.
Today, you do what you like. And we cherish this freedom. So, we smash our rhythms left, right, and center. And we're paying an absolutely terrible price. We're paying it in how we experience our lives, whether we're feeling good or really suffering. We're feeling it in our families, where families are all over the place and kids are dealing with broken rhythms. And we're dealing with it in our workplace and our health systems. And, I'm working with a health system in New Zealand just last week, or this week actually. The challenge facing our health systems with this absolutely massive demand and very limited resources, many of those problems come down to rhythm. Mm-hmm. Restore sleep rhythm, we take care of a lot of mental health illnesses. Restore breathing rhythm, we take care of all kinds of dramas and violence and so on. So, that's the story. Is we are moving into a time where I think those who want a good life must be conscious of what rhythms matter to them. And for each person, it's a different solution. But there is a rhythm for each one of us that can lift you to a life that you think, that was a good day. Behind that good day, behind that good life is rhythm. And as I've looked at this more and more, I am increasingly certain that this is a really important piece for every single one of us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of, when you think about it, what's a song without rhythm? It's just a cacophony of noise. It's actually the spaces between the sounds that turn it into something beautiful.
Yes.
So,
And, one of the studies I just had a look at was, to really get that foot tapping swing in jazz, you actually need to hold back the next note. Just a microsecond, a few microseconds.
I love that.
And, it's just almost like in our lives, sometimes we impulsively just want this. Well, just a little pause can really help. But you're absolutely right, and you really sense it and feel it in music. You sense it and feel it in dance. Sometimes you see it in a really good debate. There's a really wonderful rhythm. You definitely see it in sport. And you watch, the top teams and the elite athletes, they try to dominate their rhythm. For example, picking the ball off the court really quickly just gives you a little bit of an edge in your rhythm. And the other person's dealing with something coming back at them very, very quickly. It's hard to handle.
It's amazing.
So rhythm can be part of peak performance as well as just a healthy, enjoyable life.
And I love the idea of dancing your way through life, or making it a journey, and implementing the drills or rhythms required to be effective, to enjoy that journey, to stay ready for it. I mean, this is a theme in the book.
We all understand, that's why some of us will go ballroom dancing, because to find the rhythm of a dance, you're going to have to practice the drills, aren't you? You're going to have to go and bump into each other and work out the foot moves and the arm moves and how to time it for the music. And it takes practice. And then all of a sudden you start to feel the rhythm, and it's joyous. All creatures love rhythm. You think about birdsong. Birdsong is actually one of the most sophisticated expressions of rhythm. It is. It's kind of a source of fullness. When life is good, there's rhythm.
So tell us a little bit about what was the inspiration to write the book, and the goal of writing this book.
I think the first piece was for me, the work we've done as a team around the world. I think we put in place and suggest and expose people to very good ideas.
Yeah.
But the struggle for our clients, the struggle of people I've worked with for my entire career, is how to cross the knowing-doing gap.
Yes.
We kind of all need to know, I should sleep, I should exercise, I should eat this, or, I should meditate. The knowledge is out there now, and that's a big win. But how do you then make it personal and practical and get it working for yourself? That's the biggest challenge, and that for me was the main inspiration for the book, is to say, how do we help people at least find a few things that can help them lift their game and express them as practically as possible?
Yes.
The first drill is based on a simple idea, which you can do now is, check your posture, lengthen up your spine, just relax your face a little, exhale through the nose. There's a rhythm. And it's got a step, 1, 2, 3. And if you did that 1, 2, 3 a couple of times a day, you can have a better neck, you can have better posture, better hormones, you'll be calmer. Mm-hmm. These things all have good payback.
Yeah.
The second thing that sits as an inspiration for this book is that I see far too many people in business in particular with broken rhythms. It's kind of almost sometimes feels like it's been crushed out of them. Not because they're bad people, but because the demand of work, or virtual work, or 24/7 work, or global conferencing calls, or their internet. Lots of people have just lost a rhythm. And if you explore their past, they can often remember times in their lives where they actually had those rhythms. And they know those times are much better.
Yeah.
Now they're in a bit of a mess and they know what they need to do. So, my sense of it is it's not just one thing. And I'm really trying to make that point in the book. We can say, broccoli is really good for you. Yes, sure it is. But, should you start with a broccoli or should you start with soup? Or,
Yeah.
if you put a little bit of fitness and a bit of sleep together with a bit of breathing, maybe the broccoli is even irrelevant. And I think, that is part of this question, is for each one of us to say, okay, what matters for me? How can I explore this wonderful world of the things we could do and select out a set that you put into your, as you described it, the dance?
Yes.
And you run that dance every day. I think that's another key bit.
Yeah.
Even if it's sometimes a little attenuated, a little short, you are not very negotiable on those rhythms.
Yeah.
When we see people who really have found a rhythm, you feel their energy. You can feel their altitude. They are playful in their lives. Going to work is a joy. I love this place. I love these people. Let's rock. Yeah, there are going to be some tough times. Bring them on. I love that. But there's also going to be some fun times, some social times, some good laughter.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, those two things of identifying the practical and, understanding it's not just one thing. It's a unique mix.
Yes.
That creates your rhythm.
And who is the book for? Obviously this is imperative for leaders in an organization, because if a leader is in distress, it very quickly is mirrored across the people that work for them. So is it for leaders, or is it for everyone who wants to create a good life?
Well, look, I think there's no doubt it is a content and something that would have a very wide audience. From our work, clearly our interest is in people at work who want to have a fulfilling job but also have a good life.
Yes.
So any working person who needs to deal with the pressures of the workplace, the challenges of family, and still leading a life, that's really the core audience. The sort of peak segment, if you like, is for those people, as you described, who are leaders. This is happening more and more. I think the enlightened leaders of our time are seeing the dramas of broken people, whether you see it through the lens of mental health or emotional intelligence or cognitive skills or physical health, doesn't really matter. But people are seeing, we've got a lot of people whose buckets are empty.
Yeah.
And we need to work out, what are these risks? How do we get them up there? So I think for our hope and I guess some of the theory around the book and the drills is to help leaders see that there is a way. First, in your own life as a leader, and secondly, in terms of supporting your people and helping them build rhythm. So yes, I think that's a key market. I also think this is very important for education. So my own personal thing, this kind of stuff ought to be taught with the same rigor as we teach mathematics or reading.
Definitely.
We need to get over that one, right? We can't solve the public health crisis without embedding some of this very early in lives. And that leads naturally to the third group, which is families. There's that great quote that all healthy families are healthy in similar ways, and all challenged families are broken in different ways. There are rules to how we can work, if you like, not rules so much, but guidelines for a good family. And, when a family finds its rhythm, it's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
So I do hope that many of our audience, go back and have the conversation with their families.
Yeah. And what does rhythm mean practically? I'm fascinated by the idea of drills. I think it's practical and achievable, and it gives people a number of options, starting points. And, I've had this interest in micro habits. Start small, find what works for you. So maybe you could explain a little bit from a practical
sense. And micro habits
sense.
is an excellent way to start this journey.
Yeah.
Let's say that the book as a whole is an hypothesis.
Yes.
Yes, but it is based on some really good evidence. So you take, for example, a study done end of August in the Journal of the American Medical Association, Psychiatry. Fantastic study from my point of view, a very hard clinical journal has done a study on 1,600 odd people over 65, asking the question, if we look at depression and what's termed mild cognitive impairment, is there a difference between people who behave differently through the day? And they named these activity phenotypes. In short, that's a rhythm. What was the rhythm that led to the less depression and the best cognitive performance? Without question, like a 2 to 3-fold better, was the people who rise early on a regular basis and have a robust daily activity program. Now, to be honest, that's only two things, isn't it? It's get up at the right time for your body and be active and be really consistent in the execution of that rhythm.
Yeah.
Anyway, that leads to significantly less depression and significantly better cognitive performance. So the science is there. We understand this in sleep. We understand it in health, in digestion, in heart rate variability. So the actual core science, I think, is very well established.
Yeah.
The idea of rhythm is, as we said earlier, it's the package that's unique to you that you execute with consistency. So we can see that's Brad's rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
I can see how he's doing that. That's really interesting the way he does that. I might try that one. Actually, that worked or it didn't work. Right? So the rhythm is the package in play on a regular basis. And it's so well done that, and I had a really interesting conversation this yesterday, you wake up and it rolls.
Automated.
There is no matter of, I have to set an alarm for this. I have to, should I, shan't I, should I, shan't I, should I, shan't I. It's just get up, execute. It has a flow to it. And that's an important piece. Now, to build a rhythm, you need drills. So the focus of the book is 64 drills, hoping that out of those 64, each person may find 3 or 4 that really say, good, that's called my rhythm. The drills are the movements. So just like a dancer needs to move the feet, or a musician needs to move the hands on the piano, you practice drills. The athlete has to practice drills. And those drills are then pulled together into the rhythm. All right, so we have the drills, specific, the movements, the little pieces you can practice, rehearse, become really good at. You have the rhythm, which is the drills that work for you. Then I think there's a third theme, which is cadence. So cadence in sport or music or dance is essential. Sometimes you quieten, then it comes up to a crescendo and you quieten it. We need that, right? And in every sport, there's cadence. In our lives, I think there are times we need to take our rhythm and drive it a little harder. So, for example, a conversation I've been having this week is for senior people to think about how do they start to build a rhythm with increasing cadence between now and Christmas. Because far too many leaders today are just hanging on. Christmas is out there, and if they can just get all these things done, and then they'll fix things. But what's going to happen? Their own rhythm is going to lose cadence, disintegrate. And then you crash into your family at the end of the year. You're in a bad place.
Yeah.
It can be a really ugly Christmas, or you get sick because you've just worn yourself down.
Yeah.
Right. So, cadence is the idea of saying, whoa, okay, I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to actually get fit for my holiday starting now, 7 weeks from Christmas. So you put a little bit more intensity and focus and precision into your rhythm. You make sure you take care of the sleep. You make sure you get fit. You make sure you connect with your family so that when Christmas comes, you've actually got quality, rhythmic communication in place. To shut yourself down till Christmas and then hope for a wonderful time, it doesn't work.
No. And then setting some grand resolutions for the next year. It's well, that's why most diets fail. Most gym memberships never get used.
The athletes have kind of proven this idea of periodization.
Yes.
You have periods of sort of, resting, and then you slowly build up certain elements of whatever your sport requires, the strength, the fitness, the speed. And then you start to do the sequencing of the skills and the team plays, and then you really perfect it before a match. Each component is periodized. It has its own intensity. And I think in the same way, and I think this is quite a difficult thing for lots of our clients who many times have very high expectations. Sometimes you need to back off your rhythm. You know, reduce the cadence.
Yes.
You know, maybe you don't need to train quite that hard. You know, perhaps you need to give yourself a little less work, permission to leave work at a reasonable time. So I think that sense of timing in your rhythm and knowing that there are times to really lock it in, push it hard, other times to back it off, that's what I would term cadence.
Yes.
It's asking a lot, to be absolutely honest. The outcome of cadence is you feel momentum. So in the sports world, you know, that's a really topical word, but in business, it's really important too. You know, as you start to create rhythm as a leader and then as a team and then as a workplace, you know, when you can feel that cadence, you know when you're going to drive hard, you know when you pull back and celebrate, that business, it's building flow, isn't it?
It's building
Which
flow.
creates momentum.
Yes.
And, you know, that's when you look at our lives and you think, wow, this is a good time.
Yes, and that leads to fulfillment, which is the second most important factor
100%. Yeah.
after sleep, which is a rhythm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think, you know, that going back to our research, you know, it's pretty clear, you know, what are the things you should look at in what you're going to put into your rhythm. It's all in that research, isn't it?
it is in the research.
5 or 6 things, get on with it.
We'll link to that in the show notes for those of you who haven't explored our global report. So in many ways, rhythm and defining your rhythm, it's the opposite of ambiguity. It's the opposite of this VUCA, you know, at least control what you can control and establish that baseline. I recently was on a downward spiral. Everyone goes on a downward spiral, and it's consistent practice over time that enabled me to implement those very foundational practices like sleep, movement, calm. And before you know it, within a few days or weeks, you're back into the rhythm. So I think this leads me to a question about altitude. You can't stay at the top forever, but you can learn about yourself and implement the practices that will support your bounce.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a couple of really important perspectives you went over quite quickly. You know, the first is in a VUCA world, or the volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world we live in, it can feel a bit all over the place. You know, if you just look at whether it's markets or trade or various countries or interest rates or share prices, it's really hard to understand what's going on. There's not much clear stability for most of us. So then the question, you know, what do you stabilize in your life? You know, what you said there, that's really mission critical. And I think you're dead right. Rhythm, it's your stabilizing discipline. It's like making sure that nuts tight so that the wheels go round smoothly and they're not wobbling all over the place. Very important idea. You know, the second part, and I think there's a lovely humility and humanity in it, you know, to have the sense that, okay, you know, there will be times that I really am up there and this is wonderful and it won't last. Let me enjoy it. You know, and then something happens and you get triggered. We're human, we make mistakes, and stuff happens outside there that we can't influence. And, you know, to be able to absorb adversity with grace, but to be able to not lie to yourself and say, okay, I've got to a point, I need to take action to bounce here. And as you described so nicely, you know, that's where you need to just, which nut do I need to tighten, you know, in order to get the ship back on the path. And, you know, in the first stage, it's maybe just getting yourself out of a hole. Second stage, it's finding a bit of stability. And then you start to create that sense of vitality. And then the emotion's a bit more positive and the mind's a bit more clear. And then all of a sudden, you've got that cadence and momentum again. Yeah, we could be much more conscious and deliberate of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are your thoughts about leadership as a force for good? There's a section in the book that talks about this, but can business and leadership be a force for good in our world?
You know, my view of this, that we have no option. We actually have no option. You know, we are in a finite world with finite lives. We have this moment to do something. Humans are capable of unbelievable destruction. at the end of the day, nobody feels good after that. You know, the recriminations after what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, you know, they're going to echo for decades. It's not a good thing, right? And on the other hand, businesses are almost, you know, because they're trying to do something for a market, they are a force for good. But there's a little bit of asking, how do I do that? And how do my products, my service actually make a positive difference to someone's life? At the end of the day, the answer to your question is that if you're feeling damaged and threatened and down that spiral, it's really hard to be a force for good. You know, as you come up and you feel that energy and emotional, cognitive resourcefulness, you want to be a force for good. And if you step into your day and you're feeling positive in yourself, you're automatically going to have a positive effect on other people. If you step into your day and you're, you know, angry or collapsed or whatever it is, you're going to have a negative effect. So from that leadership point of view, I think at the end of the day, I give everyone the benefit of the doubt. Everyone actually wants to do the right thing. Sometimes we don't know how. Well, one of the ways how is to get yourself in a good state. So I repeat again and again, if you want to be a leader, if you want to be a force for good, keep working on yourself.
Yes.
And then do it again and do it again. Because how many leaders, you know, you and I have had this experience repeatedly in this journey together where we have, you know, pushed so hard to do things for other people and we've forgotten us. And, you know, down the gurgler we go. And, you know, well, that's not being a force for good, you know. Ultimately, we all get hurt when that happens. And I think, you know, as we get together as businesses, you know, that's why our B Corp journey is such an important one.
Yeah.
You know, is where we want to be absolutely crystal clear. We want to be a force for good. And as you were saying earlier in our talk before this, that means we all need to be in a positive place. We need to know what our drills are. We need to have our rhythms. And it's a wonderful thing. And when, you know, when a business really finds that, wow, it's a beautiful thing to be part of it.
Absolutely.
And the world needs it, right? I mean, you know, it's not just humans and the families that serve you and provide the people you work with. It's our communities, it's our planet.
Yeah. Imagine if, well, every politician should be made to read a book like this and to implement some rhythms. Can you imagine the shift in consciousness in where we place our focus? If people are,
I think the first hints of that are coming.
Yeah.
They're fragile and many of them fall away, but I think more and more people are asking these questions. So I'm hopeful. I think we'll see it.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe you could just very quickly talk us through what are some of the drills? What are they all about for someone who's sitting there going, drills? What do they mean? What are some of the focus areas?
Great question. So, you know, I think the first question, and, you know, there are lots of options here, but is to work out, as we said, if you want a good rhythm, you need to select the drills that are right for you.
Yes.
So, as in that global report, it's pretty clear, you know, there's sleep, fulfillment, as you mentioned, the balance, the relaxation, focus, fitness. Well, there you go, you know. In the book are some very simple ways to tick those boxes.
Yep.
Now, let's start with sleep. Well, sleep is not just one thing, is it? Sleep in itself is actually a complex rhythm that needs to be part of your greater rhythm. But in the practice of getting a good night's sleep, there are drills to get your timing right, to get the quality right, to get the amount of sleep right.
Yes.
So, you know, in that sleep section, there would be, you know, perhaps 7 or 8 little things you could practice. And sometimes your sleep problem has got nothing to do with sleeping. It's actually got to do with a crazy mind, which is the focus point. And, you know, in that section, which is in the grow section, there are a range of drills to help you understand, what am I thinking? Okay, do I need to be in the washing machine of that thought? Well, it's not much fun. How do I step back? How do I find that metacognition, that awareness that says, wow, I'm actually experiencing a worry. Isn't that interesting? Look at that worry. Now, you've named it. Once you name it, it loses its power over you. So, simple little things, how do I identify thinking? How do I then, once I've named it, how do I get back to being present? How do I then develop focus? They're each broken down into little drills.
Yes.
And I think, many people think, well, if you just meditate, all these things will come together, sort of, but not really. And as we know, the research on mindfulness and meditation, it's patchy at best. Mm. So the approach I've taken is to try and establish what are the fundamental drills in each of these areas that you can put together to make a state of mental clarity a more likely occurrence. So we go through physical drills, we go through, emotional drills, mental drills, how to find flow in your life, which is that momentum, how to sustain it. I mean, one of the really important ones, and I think, something I'm increasingly curious with as I go through my own life evolution, is transitions. The drills of understanding, when are you hitting a transition?
Yes.
It's fundamental not to leave it too long. We choose to have children, and your life's going to change. You need to adapt from being a single or couple, double income, to actually now having a living human being as part of your lives. Wow. And then the kids leave you. Do you hang on to them? Or do you let them go and transition to the next phase? And then as we change the way we work, or if we work, these transitions are really important. And I guess what I've tried to do in this book is to build them up from the really basic ones up to those more complex ones like transitions and flow and, really being in a contemplative space in your life to really live with joy.
Yeah. That idea of transitions is so important because I think nowadays there's so much noise. You could spend all of your life on TikTok and not really notice what's going on out there. And there are these phases, you move from being a young person at school being told what to do to having some choice in what you do. And people struggle. Now there's an anxiety epidemic. And then you change, and change is constant. I find even now, I'm 44, but you don't bounce physically. Your physical vitality is a little bit different to when you're 24.
You bet.
It's the first time I've experienced that.
You bet. And that's wisdom. And when you see that clearly for the first time, which probably happens in our 40s, for some people it's even later, that's just a little reminder that your physical activity rhythms, you need to double down.
Yes.
Because we know that as you move through the 50s, 60s, 70s, even to 80s and 90s, the impact of a physical rhythm is exponentially better than someone who doesn't have a physical rhythm.
Yeah.
Actually the physiological stuff starts at 35. So, in a way we could say at 44 it's getting on, get moving. Put that
Yes. Yeah. I'm glad I did. And I think for many people, as you said earlier on, getting started is the challenging point. So start with, well, what would you say? Be playful, experiment, but don't leave it to chance. Where do you start?
It's a big piece that, because there's so many different ways to approach it, aren't there? Mm-hmm. I think the basic survival rhythms, which I talk about, they are actually the first step. Yes. Because if you haven't got your sleep and your those 6 things in place, we know that your life's not a very good place. So any starting something or transitioning something is going to be compromised. Mm-hmm. So, getting the base stuff sorted out, that's the first thing.
Yeah.
Then I think slowly moving to be more and more present. Seeing there's lots of chaos out there, but knowing how to own your physical space, your emotional space, your mental space, and to be present. Present for your life, present for nature, present for the person you're talking to. This is a big step. This thing of being able to get away from the noise of your thinking and be in a centered, connected place, that actually opens if you lack the brain, emotional intelligence system to be able to negotiate. And you can now think, and you can reflect. You can notice those physical things you talked about. You feel the emotional signals. You're alert to the mental signals. Now you're actually in the position where you can start to do things. And maybe another piece with this. I haven't been great at this until later in my life. I think we all need time to get on the balcony and to reflect. Mm-hmm. It's a really hard thing to do today. Even our holidays get stacked up with one activity after another. We recently did something, and, part of the experience was that, they scheduled the whole blooming day for you. Well, we just kicked back and said, no, thanks.
Yep.
We just want to hang out, and we're going to go walking, and we're not going to drive around and rush from one trip to the next. Forget it. So that time of taking precious time to just be reflective, to feel where you're going, ask some questions, test some ideas, we need that. We really need that. And the last thing I would say about this journey, the evolution, is it, as you said, be playful, but do something.
Yes. Yeah.
Far too many of us just get stuck. Yeah, I should.
Must.
I will. Well, rubbish. Don't even say that to yourself. Do it.
Just do it.
Do it. And it may be a mess. And you think, okay, it wasn't the right time. But, it is through trial and error that humans actually learn.
Yeah.
The more you're in a good place, I think more skillful your choices will be, and the better and the faster your feedback loops will be. But we still need to do stuff. We need to try different things and keep what works. Yeah.
And I have a suggestion for leaders out there, people out there who want to know where to start. We have a wonderful toolkit that is available, including a resilience diagnostic. Maybe you could tell people a little bit about the diagnostic and how it can help them set their rhythms. This is not promotional. This is just a real...
This is like it helps you know where you are, because if you don't know where you are and where it's coming from, it's really hard to go. So, the idea of our diagnostic is insight. Mm. What we know is if you can see where you are, you can move skillfully. If you can't see where you are, you're crashing blind into things. So the diagnostic is a way of you to take it just a little check. How am I traveling? Physically, emotionally, mentally, even in terms of that concept of fulfillment, flow, spirit and action. It gives you feedback. And then you can look at your scores on each of those areas and actually start to say, actually, I'm proud of that. That's great. That actually reflects its importance to me. And another area you think, ooh, that's not so good. I could tidy that up. And the beauty of this diagnostic is you can benchmark yourself against, tens of thousands of similar people at work who are struggling with these ideas. So you can see, well, okay, this is what the people who are really flourishing and having a great time, this is what they do.
Yes.
And on the other side, those people who really are stuck in depression or anxiety, this is what is happening for them.
Yeah.
And this is what you need to work on, manage if you're going to get back up there.
Yeah. And it's so fascinating when you look at group results, and do check out the global report. But a team might come to us and say, we're burning out. And it turns out no one's sleeping. No one has practiced relaxation for years. Everyone's high intensity. And you can quite quickly pinpoint, like, this is a rhythm you collectively can implement.
Yep.
And here's how.
And you're not
beautiful.
burning out. You're just failing to implement basic survival skills.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I actually make a point in the book, and I'm not that popular because of this perspective, but I don't really buy the burnout story.
Yeah.
In a way, it's a way to shift blame. Work has burned me out.
Yeah.
Well, yes, that's true, but you have chosen to be in that job in most cases.
Yeah.
And as you say, there are some basic things you have to take responsibility for. Your boss can't do it.
He can't put you to bed at night.
No,
or she.
Right. You need to own it. And, And, that's part of the whole idea. Get the drills, get the rhythm, get your cadence, and, burnout is not a problem.
No, thank you. This has been a great interview. You have many fans out there, and wherever I go, someone knows of Dr. Sven, and you've been a real force for good in all of our lives, mine included. Any last thoughts, words for everyone out there who is a fan of your work and your mission?
Yeah, I always say, just realize this life is a journey. It changes. Be ready to bounce. Be ready to grow. Be ready to connect. Be ready to flow. Yeah.
Excellent.
And it's a joy. It's a playful game. We need to find the playfulness in our lives.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure as always. I know we'll do this again soon, and we'll see you all in the next Resilience podcast. Do click on the links in the show notes to get a copy of Sven's latest book.
Thank you, Brad. Really appreciate your great interviewing. Lovely.